we can start the webinar. So this is the second of the series of the DATAMITE webinar sessions. And today we will present about data valuation and maximizing business potential. So I welcome Eduardo and Rob from UCC and FEAR, as well as Margit to present from ZSI the findings of maximizing business potential, monetizing and non-monetizing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Schneider. I'm a research associate at FER at RWTH Aachen University with a background in mechanical engineering. And I will be delivering today's webinar on behalf of my colleague Martin Lörs, who were originally scheduled to present the session. But please feel free to raise your questions during and after the presentation. I will collect them and then make sure to forward them to Martin or have a discussion with him so we can follow up with all your questions. So a few words to DATAMITE. DATAMITE stands for Data Monetization, Interoperability, Trading and Exchange. It's a Horizon Europe project aiming to help organizations turn data into value. The project develops a modular open source framework with 5 main modules: governance, quality, security, sharing, supporting tool, and a supporting tool. And DATAMITE goes beyond pure technology. It also covers business strategies, legal and ethical aspects, and provides training and blueprints for data monetization. The framework is being validated in 6 pilots across energy, agriculture, telecommunication, public administration, and cloud environments. And the impact goal is empower especially small and medium-sized enterprises to join the European data economy and strengthen Europe's technology sovereignty and data sharing. So let's start with the main topic of today's webinar. Sorry, I was too fast. It was lagging. The slide shows what we mean by data monetization strategies, the different ways of companies can create value from data. We've grouped them into 3 categories: internal use to reduce cost, external use to generate revenue, and non-monetary use to build, reach, or ecosystems. Within these categories, you see 12 concrete strategies, ranging from cost reduction and wrapping to platform models and as-a-service offerings. And I will show you all the strategies in detail now. So the first part of the webinar will concentrate only on external data monetization strategies. These include both indirect and direct models, such as wrapping, servitization, new products, bartering, platform models, and as-a-service approach. The non-monetary strategies, like sharing data for free, will cover separately in the second part from Margaret. We begin with 3 external data monetization strategies that are especially relevant for manufacturing and service industries: wrapping, servitization, and new products and services. These approaches all build on existing offerings, but they differ in how far companies go, from simply enhancing a product with data features to transforming it into a product service system or even creating entirely new data-driven offerings. So the first one, wrapping, means enriching an existing product or service with data-driven features. Revenue comes from premium pricing, upselling, or analytics add-ons, while success depends on seamless integrations, relevant insights, and customer trust. UPS, for example, demonstrate this by adding live tracking, delivery status, and the estimated time of delivery to its parcel service, giving customers a more transparent and reliable experience. Servitization is the shift from selling products to offering product service hybrid-based systems on lifecycle data. Revenue is generated through recurring contracts and higher margin data-driven models, and success requires strong service capabilities, effect use and lifecycle data, and alignment between product and service. Big example, for example, is Rolls-Royce. They applied this with its power by the hour model, where the airline pay not for the engine, but for guaranteed uptime and performance, and therefore they pay per the hour of the engine running. Then new offerings from data insights. They arise when entirely new products or services are created from data analysis. This strategy brings in new revenue streams and customer segments with success relying on strong analytics, industry knowledge, and identifying unmet needs. IBM, for example, exemplifies this with its elderly care monitoring service, where in-home seniors detect anomalies early and enable cost savings of up to 30%. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. The next strategy is data bettering. Data bettering means exchanging data for other valuable assets, such as insights, tools, or complementary data. The revenue model is indirect. Companies gain value through access to service or data they would otherwise need to purchase. This success depends on clear mutual benefits, data quality, and trust between partners. Trump, for example, is a good example. This company shares CAD drawings and machine data with tool suppliers, and in return receive quality certificates and performance data for certified drilling tools. The next two strategies are about providing and refining platforms. Data platform providers, by providing, operate marketplaces or innovation platforms that connect supply and demand. Revenue mainly comes from transaction fees, and success requires critical mass and neutrality. Metals Hub is an example in the metals industry, enabling listing, matching, contracts, and payments processing for buyers and suppliers. Refining, data platform refiners build on this role by using platform data to create additional value. Revenue stems from advanced analytics and AI services, and success depends on access to high-quality data and customer trust. Siemens Mindsware is a strong example, offering data collection, app development, ecosystem services, and refined analytics to machine builders and operators. So the next group of strategies are the as-a-service models. They present different ways of packaging and delivering data to customers, ranging from raw data to structured information to direct answer. Together, these approaches define how data can turn into recurring service-based revenue. So the first one, data as a service. Data as a service means providing anonymized raw data through a platform or marketplace. Revenue comes from subscriptions or pay-per-use, and success depends on scale, reliable data collection, and trust. Meta is an example, offering user data that developers and solutions providers can build on. Information as a service turns raw data into structured reports or analyses. Revenue is generated through sales of single reports or subscription. With higher margins due to their specificity, a good example is Google Maps, which uses traffic and location data, deliver navigation services for customers and businesses. Example, all of you should know. Answer as a service goes one step further by delivering direct responses and recommendations to user questions. Revenue comes from subscriptions, pay-per-answer, or consulting add-ons, and success requires deep customer understanding and relevance. Fantastic shows with fitness tracking, coaching advice, and health insights for end users a good example. These are the direct and indirect strategies. The next one are the non-monetary utilization points, which Margaret will from now on take over. Margaret, are you ready?
Yes, good morning. Hi. Yeah. So as Rob was mentioning, obviously there are some other impacts next to the non-monetary benefits. Would you? Yeah, okay. So this is what the design has done. Basically, what we were trying to look at was to look at these non-monetary benefits, yeah? How did we do that? So first, obviously the first thing what you do is basically you scan the literature, and we were mapping different dimensions and different areas that would impact you or your business when it comes to non-monetary benefits. Then our next step was basically to do the interviews with our 5 pilots. You might know, or possibly you haven't seen it, but we do have 5 different pilots in very different areas, from telecommunication, agriculture, weather, and so on. So very different and very heterogeneous pilots. So we were mapping here some benefits that we found there. But then on the other hand, what the next step was basically for us to have long-term visions from them, but also to ask them what is the perceived impact for you. And all of that frames the final social science and humanities data sharing framework, what we called it. And basically what we tried really to do is to do these anchor points for this continuous reflection, because this is something that is quite important also to understand what other impacts does it have, what would I like to achieve, and really anchoring it to specific items. Okay, could you please continue? Okay, so just to give you a very short insight what we found in literature, basically what you find in literature is that these benefits, it's very much fragmented and it's very much context specific. So depending on what business, they do see very different non-monetary benefits. Many of them, or mostly all of them, they really do see a lot of the risks and the challenges, mainly in privacy, biased data, discrimination, mistrust. So these ones are very common for all of the different sectors. However, they do see also that you find quite a lot of benefits in terms of democracy, but also knowledge generation. Okay. What we found, on the other hand, on the interviews, so on a very practical point of view, was very much that, again, here also you have a very broad range of different contexts, but they do see, or they're looking for a fast revenue. So fast revenue, as soon as they share the data, they're really looking into what immediate benefit would I have. But they also face this challenge of cost shifting and missing incentives for individuals. Now, what they experienced for now is basically they found new services which are more efficient. They expanded their network, basically. They are very much looking into enhanced transparency for the data and also improving the data quality, but also smoothen this entire process of data sharing and reliable data. If you could click the next slide. Okay, so how does the practice look like? Yes, there is a data sharing. Many of them do share data, but, and that is the, I would say, general statement is it's not that efficient as it should be. So the recommendations is really go for a strategic approach, make a selective sharing. So open data is not automatically open by default, but also make sure that your workflows are in line with the data sharing ethics and regulations. Okay, could you continue, please? Okay, so here we have these different non-monetary impacts. Some of them might not. Some of them might not, so not all of them might really affect your business as such, but in general, this is a framework that would apply to many different businesses. And here you do have societal dimensions, ecological, security. I mean, most of them or all of them really do face security dimensions. Science, obviously, customer business related ones. This is very close connected to monetary impacts, but also macroeconomics, policy related ones. Ethics is a very important point, but it might be also, there might be also impacts on culture, organizational impact, and also regulatory impacts, like all these legal aspects. There have been a data webinar already on the legal framework, so if you are specifically interested on the legal regulatory impact, please also check out that webinar. Okay. Could you continue, please? What we did here was also to understand where do our pilots really do see the benefits, but also on the other hand, where do we see the risks? And obviously, I mean, we were quite happy to understand or to see that they do see a lot of benefits in these different dimensions. However, obviously, they see not a lot of benefits in the security, because the security obviously is connected to a high risk also. So they do see benefits in social, ecological, scientific, macroeconomic, customer business related dimension, obviously, and very much also in organizational and regulatory dimensions. On the other hand, if you look at the risks, they do see a lot of risks also connected to. So basically, very much in security and customer business related one, which might be also due to the fact that customer data needs to be specifically protected. Okay, thank you. Can you continue? So how does this help you with your business, and how will that be then finally reflected? So what is going on for the moment that we do take these different dimensions and we have split it up into different topics. So here you see an example for the organizational impact. We have addressed some questions so that you would understand what is it meant by these different sections that we split it in. So in general, if we talk about organization, you would find a question on, does your data sharing improve data generation? This tool that we call Data Reflect is supposed to be a reflection tool for you also to understand what impacts might it have. Okay, this is a work that will happen or will be finalized by March 2026. Yeah, and will be also available on the DATAMITE website. Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is the final slide from our side. My colleague Eduardo will continue with the presentation that will cover an approach for data valuation. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us.
Hello, testing. Do you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, 1 second. Are you seeing the screen clearly or not?
It's not full screen, so if you
1
can
second.
put it full screen.
There?
No,
Now?
I think you have to stop sharing and then reshare.
What about now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Eduardo.
Let me test.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, perfect. So, hello everyone. Yes, my name is Eduardo Meister. I'm doing this presentation together with Rob Schneider and Margit Hofer. Most of the things that was discussed before my part was about the strategies, okay? So, what I'm going to be talking more is about how you can use all of these strategies in order to come with valorization of the data, okay? In order to do that, the first things that we have to understand are the different challenges that come with the monetization or valorization of the data. Monetization is not the same thing as valorization. When we talk about monetization, we tend to talk about more prices, but at the end, it's very difficult to define a price for data because it's very, as you could know, is very context dependent. So depending on the context, it could be very valuable for one sector, but useless for another. So Over here, you can see the different challenges that come with the monetization. And one of the first challenges is the privacy. This is related with the regulations like GDPR and CCPA that restrict how personal data can be used or sold. The complexity part is not just the compliance, but also kind of like how to tracking user consent and making sure that the data is used as defined in all the contractual terms. In the second challenge is the evaluation complexity, which is basically the focus of the work, is how you are going to valorize your data from extracting certain metrics, certain approaches, and use different frameworks in order to valorize the data. The third one is we have about the data quality and provenance. It's easy to see that poor quality or incomplete or biased data reduce its value. But we also have to consider the governance components, okay, that like provenance or ownership that could considerably affect the value of the data. The fourth challenge is the lack of interoperability or standard. This is more related to how the data is fragmented, and you can use different methodologies or approaches that exist or doesn't exist to agglomerate and to make it useful, okay? And at the same time, the approaches that could be used for formatting the data could change over time. So that is other things that has to be considered. The fifth challenge is the business model. And this is directly what was mentioned before about the different strategies. So I'm not going to go really deep on that, but was all the content previously discussed. Okay. The sixth challenge is security and trust. And it's related with the fear of organization for data breaches and data sharing, okay? And there's different technical components like federated learning that can help this the sharing of the data, but there's some human factors that has to be considered because of the trust at the end of sharing is nothing more that there's a big component of the trust for sharing data and of course using this data for extracting information. Then we have the legal contractual complexity that is a part of the regulatory component. This is more related to the ownership of the data, and of course also it has a complexity involved of trust. So is related with all the governance component over here. And finally, what is important that has to be considered for this presentation, so is about how companies struggle with the measurement of data quality. But at the end, quality is not the only thing that we have to consider to measure. There's different factors that are going to be impacting the value of the data, and therefore we have to make mechanisms and ways to make sure that we are going to measuring all these factors that at the end is going to be impacting the value of data. So before going forward, I want to, let me change the slide over here. I want to have a few considerations. Maybe it's going to be repetitive, but I think they are important, that in order to understand the framework that I have to present. The first thing is valorization is not the same of pricing, because again, valorization it refers to the process of realizing the value of data, okay? How useful, relevant, impactful it is. But pricing, on the other hand, assign the monetary value of the data set, okay? So it's different things. When we talk about context, okay, we are going to be talking about different ways that we can, depending on the strategy, okay, measure the value of the data. And we have defined principally in this framework that we're going to be presenting three relevant components. One is quality, another is relevance, and another utility. Maybe you have heard about these metrics or KPIs, but quality is a base one, okay, component. Relevance is more directly incorporation of the context, so it has a hierarchically a higher level over quality because you can require for the data that has high quality, but in addition, you can ask other components. So relevance is how much is useful for the user of the data. And then you have the higher hierarchy, the higher component that is utility. That refers is like it's not only useful for your domain or use case, but could be used in general. The other thing that we have to consider also is the demand, because as was mentioned, you can have direct or indirect monetization. And if you are going to be using for direct monetization, highly the demand of the data or services are going to be affected by the demand. And finally, the strategies that we know we have mentioned is define out to extract the maximum benefit from the data, and it will be affecting each one of the other components that we are going to be seeing next. So now I want to present here the general framework. I'm going to go through each one of these different components for the data valorization, but the initiation of everything is the definition of the strategy. Once you have the strategy, you, in some sort of way, you can connect to the contact and demand, and based on different tools, for example, ANP, that is for the decision making, an approach that I'm going to be describing later on, that is the valuation model, you can come with a value for a data set. Now, this value has no meaning by itself. You have to use approaches like benchmarking, or you can use this value just directly for comparison, but it's a standalone number that has no meaning as long as you don't project it in a benchmark process. So let's go little by little with each of these concepts. The first thing, strategy. I think that we don't have to go really deep on it because it was discussed previously, but the main consideration is that we have different approaches, and you have indirect on direct monetization, and over here in the screen you can see the different examples for it, that have for each one of these different or services or approaches. Okay, so at the end, nothing more than we have the strategy check. Okay. Now, when we talk about the demand, the first thing that we have to try to estimate is representative. Okay. We have to consider there are different methods for the representation. Nevertheless, simplistic models tend to fail to represent the demand with the data market because there are several factors to consider. Okay. For example, it can be easily seen that demand representation and estimation will be completely different depending on the strategy, of course. And furthermore, consumer behavior is highly heterogeneous. Therefore, the response will depend on different factors. Can be price sensitivity, quality sensitivity, trust, and other factors that are going to be affecting the demand. And lastly, you have the market influence. So when we have want to represent the demand or estimate the demand, we can use different models. This is a resume of the different models that could be used for the estimation, but that doesn't mean that all of them are specifically useful for a specific strategy. That means that you have to use the most suitable depending on what you want to represent. For example, the spatial model, there's a well-known model that is the hoteling. There is a linear representation in a space, okay? And is used, also has been used for the determination of dataset values, okay? But is based on a price line represented as a linear component between two data brokers, okay? It has been used, but again, the simplicity doesn't mean that it could be used in all the strategies and all the realities environment that exists in the market. There's another a little bit more complex. For example, the differential model or the hedonic pricing models, they tend to represent the value or determine the demand based on different factors that contribute to the determination of the demand. And there's a more complex that I think that tend to be the most representative ones are the structural and homothetic utility models. I'm not going to go in detail over here, but what is the important thing of this model is that they can be used as typically in all the demands model, can be used for logistic or seasonal trends, but for data, they can be used for revenue forecast, substitution patterns, attribute influence, strategic competition insight, and role of market participants. So there's a little contribution. In the framework in DATAMITE, we use it directly as an input to the dependent of the strategy that you're going to be using to determine an economical benefit, okay, for your data set. So that's why it's important in the framework that we have developed. So what we have been doing, just to let you know, there's a publication already on this, is what type of models are more suitable depending on the strategy that is used for the data monetization. Over there, for example, you have the data as a service, information as a service, and answer as a service. And depending on what strategies you want to follow, is recommend a specific model, and it is explained why the selection of this. How we selected or did this analysis? We connected or we analyzed the different models with the realities of these strategies in terms of price sensitivity, network effects, subscription and pay-per-use, product delivery, and downstream value. So we have strategy, we have the demand. I want to try to go a little bit simplistic in the following slides to don't overweight everything, but believe me, this is a lot of things that you have to consider if you want to come with a representation for the value of a data set. Now, when we talk about the context, so how you are going to represent the context of the strategy or what you have to be doing. That's when normally in an enterprise representation, you can come with, for example, key performance indicators. Key performance indicators can be metrics, but can be also a merge or a suitable combination of metrics, okay? And these combinations normally are going to be tracked by the enterprise in order to measure the status of the strategy, how well it's been doing. We are using it in our framework, these metrics, in order to give a proxy of the value. That is not the final representation, but you have to know how you are going to combine it. But in order to, there's a huge number of metrics that we have realized in our analysis. We have more than 120. And the idea is like, okay, not all these metrics are useful for everyone. So the first thing that we came is how to organize them in a nice way for strategic considerations and then filter them. So for first organizing them, we come with the idea of first implemented or cluster them using the balance scorecard. The balance scorecard is a well-known economic framework used to distribute the focus of the strategies. You have the financial components, the customer, the internal, and the learning and growth. That, as you see in the screen, each one has different focuses that in the overall represent the different considerations that could come in an enterprise interest. But at the end, this is a higher level, and we came with a taxonomy that incorporates everything, okay, in more subclusters. Over there, for example, from top to bottom, you are seeing the financial, customer, internal process, and learning and growth that are the balance scorecard component. We subdivide this component in subclusters, okay? And these subclusters are further contained by the metrics. So this is super important or interesting, because at the end we have a way to connect them, the metrics, and we are showing you, depending on the basic metrics, how you can calculate others. For example, over here you have an expansion of the internal processes. Not going to go further. So we have the context. Now that you have the context, normally we're going to go into what is referred to decision making. When you have a system, you are measuring, you are calculating your KPI. Depending on how is the behavior, you can alter your system or again to improve it continually. But this important thing that you are not only have to make a decision making over your system, you are also needed to make a decision making over your metrics, because the metrics can change as, for example, your strategy change. For that, we use the approach, it's called analytical network process. So we have to decide which metrics to use, which are more relevant to use. To do that, in DATAMITE, we created a web tool that is over there in the screen. You can, well, later on, you can access this presentation. So it's going to be doing the ANP process for you. And the important thing is that it's going to give you the relative importance of all the metrics that you find interesting for your case, okay? Then the final thing important is the model, okay? The model, has a 3-step, it's divided in 3 steps, depending of how you enter or what information you have. The ideal one is in the top, that you have performed the ANP pathway, but in order for users to evaluate a first approaches on for more simplistic one, we have gone with a fallback pathway. That is the first step. This fallback pathway, basically what it does is ask different questions, and depending of the answer is going to tell you what to do in step 2 and step 3. It's a decision tree basically, and depending of the answer, once you jump into step 2, it's going to tell you the minimal metrics to consider in order to your data set valorization. But if you have used the taxonomy, the ideal case, you just go directly normalize your data, and then comes the calculation of the data set value. Once you have normalized your data, I'm not referring to the data, I refer to normalization of the data metrics, because you have to harmonize the data metrics, not the data. The data is a different thing because we are valorizing the data through data metrics. So you jump to step 3, and then you have, this is the basically formulation that depending of if you have to estimate quality, that is the first box, relevance, that is the second box, or utility, that is the third box on top, you calculate this proxy that is going to give you the data set value. I'm sorry for the time. I would love to explain a little bit more deeper on over here, but at the end, when you have this proxy, you have to estimate additionally all cost, all demand if you did it, and then you can estimate an information contraction that depends on the strategy is going to be a factor altering your value estimation. And finally, you come with this last formulation that you can see on the bottom, that is give you the value of the data set. Okay. Again, this is going to be published, but I think that maybe in the future it's going to be another time to present everything. And then you have basically the model. And if you use it, you are going to have a value representation. Finally, what you do with this value, you can do market benchmarking to come possibly with a price, or a data set comparison directly for data set selection. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, don't have to ask me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.